Very good afternoon. Welcome all. This is the open house exclusively for the GwS Learning Guild, where the idea is to crowdsource the knowledge which is already residing within the guild. So we pick up a particular topic and we discussed amongst each other, and GwS Satori takes responsibility to collate all that information, convert it into a consumable PDF document or something to share it back with the community. That's the idea, so that we can learn from the wisdom within the community. With that being, last time we discussed on, how or what do learning leaders need to do in order to showcase return on investment on learning initiatives, interventions to the leadership so that they can garner buy-in. This month, we are going to be talking about how do we develop leaders within the organization, identify and develop leaders within the organization. So I do have a very vague structure in my hand, but we will see how the discussions go. And yeah, we'll see how the discussions go. So I'll start with the question, since we are talking about identifying and growing leaders. I think the first question is, how do you identify leaders in your respective organizations? And if you are a consultant, how have you seen leaders being identified for growth, for development in various organizations? Unmute, speak up, raise your hand if you're speaking over each other, and let's see what emerges.
Ma'am, I think somebody who's taking the responsibility of being a leader themselves, they have it in them that they want to lead, they want things to be organized in a particular manner.
So Sakshi, are you saying people self-volunteer, saying that I would like to grow? Please figure out how to develop me. Is that what you're saying? Sure, thank you. Yeah, and at least that has become a very commonplace these days. Thank you.
Yes, it's like if we are in a community, just say GwS, and there's something needs to be done. And let's just say that I'm a content writer, I'm an executive assistant. Rather than just being that, if I'm required somewhere and I can do that, then I'll take the leadership and make it happen.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That, yeah.
Akanksha, you have your hand up.
So, adding on to what Sakshi said, of course, somebody who's very proactive. And I think one more, aspect of a leader that I have noticed is somebody who's willingly helping the other person in whatever manner that they can. If they know something and the other person is probably struggling with it, to put in their thoughts there, help them move ahead, and not just tell them that this is how you need to do it, but more like guide them. That this is how, think in this direction, and whether we can move in this direction, what do you think is going to happen? So something like that, when we see, I think these are small traits that help us identifying somebody who can become a leader.
Sure. So am I hearing correctly that the primary focus is not technical, functional domain skills, rather more of behavioral skills, and how you can grow others in the organization is what you might want to look at as HR, Akanksha. Is that fair?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Sure. Yes, Preeti.
I think what Sakshi and Akanksha said are one of the key aspects to observe when to see if a person has that leadership quality. One is, of course, they have to be proactive always. They cannot be reactive. And the other is whether in their personality, are they open to mentoring people? And of course, functionally, they should be really good to be leading the team or a project. So that is another. But coming to a structured way of how, because I consult for leadership programs. The structured way, I think what I have at least tried in my experience is, one is 270 or a 360 degree assessment. I think that is a very powerful way, tool to identify where they stand, because they might have all the qualities of a leader, but a lot of it might need a lot of polishing, and to identify their strengths and area of improvements. I think 270 and 360 degree assessment is a very simple but yet powerful tool. And for very senior leadership, I think development centers is another very interesting an interesting way of identifying who would be suitable for a specific leadership role. I think this is what I can
These
think
two.
of right.
Yeah, so 360, 270 degree assessments that will help us identify the right leadership potential within the team based on how the team has experienced that individual. I'm also hearing you say that development centers, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying we use development centers not only to develop leaders but also to identify potential leaders, is also what you're saying.
Yes. Normally, I think development, correct me if I'm wrong, Shanti, normally when we have maybe 3 or 4 people who are actually qualified for a leadership position is when development center comes handy, because it's not based on what they've done, but basically how they think in a specific situation, in various challenging situations, etc.
Absolutely. Fair point. Thanks, Preeti. Yes, Vaishnavi.
I think although we feel that leadership is different from technical expertise, the base point at which we start is technical expertise or the core domain knowledge that the person has, that they've exhibited, that they've performed. So only with the high performer that people generally start looking if they have the potential to take up higher responsibilities. So what generally I have observed is, are they able to demonstrate what they're supposed to be demonstrating? If yes, are they now ready to take up higher responsibilities? By higher responsibilities, I'm referring to their ability to look at tasks beyond theirs. Can they look at what is important for the team? Can they look at how can they develop others so that they can meet the organization's goals? Will they be able to help the organization realize its objectives in the long run? How can they be a strong pillar in getting all of these done? Yes, so all of this, but I still feel the beginning point till date has been someone who can actually do what they're supposed to be doing very well, and then we look at their potential, their capability in developing themselves and others for future projects.
And how would you know that somebody might be able to perform in a future project?
That's again something based on their initiatives that they've taken in smaller projects. Are they showing interest in learning newer things that come their way? Are they willing to participate in activities over and above their expected roles, responsibilities? Do they show that interest in growing, developing, learning? All these can be observed, and as Preeti said, through performance appraisals, through observations, through team members' responses, all of these will be some of the tools that can be used to gauge if the person is ready for high responsibilities.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts from anyone? How do you identify leaders to be developed, or how do you identify high potential in your organization to develop? That's the question we are discussing. Ishita, please go ahead.
Thank you. I completely agree with all of us shared the perspectives, what usually organizations look at for developing their future leaders or identifying the future leaders. There's one very unique experience that I wanted to share here. So in one of the organizations I was working with, within that organization, there was a leader who had a group of say 7 to 8 team members. He was the one who identified those team members, and he used to call them for random work related or anything else. Some projects that are ongoing, some projects that people should be taking initiatives about and brainstorm about it. If there is nothing like that, they used to discuss about anything that is taking time and how we can reduce the time within that. There were some books that were discussed during those brainstorming sessions, and within that, the idea was whatever is happening during those discussions. That group used to meet for 1 hour each week, and the idea was you are having one takeaway. from that. Find a person within your teams who you can teach that takeaway, groom them for that thing, and then come back to meeting and then find a new takeaway for yourself. The intent of having such meetings were that leader wanted us to learn something new, apply it in our work, train someone else, and find something new to work on.
Lovely. So this brings back to what Sakshi was saying, our leaders taking initiative for their own growth and development, and they might be great leaders to grow and develop others. That's the idea I'm getting from what you're sharing, Ishita.
Yeah, along with that, the intent was learn something, hand over. If you're pro with something, don't keep doing that. Hand it over to somebody else and move on to learning something new. And the faster your pace is, I think that was kind of giving that picture that you are ready for the next role type.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other tools, approaches you've used to identify leaders in your organization?
Another instance, I think when Ishita was talking, I just remembered this. This is not a very direct tool to identify, but a very informal way of seeing who has thoughts, has a very long-term vision, etc. So in one of the previous companies I used to work for, the director called me one day and said, okay, every month we're going to have a 2-hour event every month in the office, where we provide a platform. It's going to be like a chai pe charcha type of event. But the most unique part of it was people come and share all their mistakes that they've made in that month. So this was I think this was in my third or fourth year of working, so I was very taken aback. I was wondering, isn't this going to be a negative event? But later I realized how many people got a platform to talk, and how this actually created that rapport between people who used to work in different offices came together. They got to know each other better. They started learning from others' mistakes.
Yeah, so beautiful. In fact, what comes to my mind is we used to call it mobility and stretch assignments is what we used to call it. And though the name was very dry and wasn't very attractive, the activities we used to do within that initiatives were very similar. We used to have a hall of fame, and at the bottom it was written failures hall of fame, and people would go and put up their how they failed, only for people to learn. And the stretch assignments would be like, oh, I am able to see somebody else put up a post. Basically, it'll be a 6x6 card, index card that they'll write and say, I'm going to help them overcome their challenge, what they're facing. So people will write and sign the names and contact emails so that those two can connect and then take it forward. So those used to be stretch assignments, and leaders beyond a certain grade had to do at least 6 such assignments every year. Basically, and people who would meet were above average, people who would stay a little bit below were below average. So those things also happened. But I'm thinking we should have had a more creative name, but it was called mobility and stretch assignments. Very dry, but very interesting idea. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody here? The idea that comes to me is the assessments, not the 360 ones, but things like MBTI, DISC, strengths assessment. Anybody here seen those being used as tools to identify potential leaders, and what has your view been on that?
I think these are very, very powerful tools, especially MBIT. We have DISC, we have Enneagram, but I think the one drawback I've seen with them is the reports are quite complicated and are very specific to the framework that the personality test is based on. So a lot of people, unless there's a lot of spoon feed, or we should do a really good one-to-one debriefing on how to interpret the report and how they can benefit from the findings or leverage what's in the report. Only then I've seen, and that again has to be tied into some learning journey, then I've seen it to be very effective. Yeah,
So
because
what you're saying is these are more as a developmental tool. What areas can the leader develop in, but not to identify the potential is what you're saying, Preeti.
yes, it can be
Sure.
part of a learning journey to help them. Just like 360, this is specific to the personality trait, etc. Yeah.
Lovely. One last question on the same concept. How would you trust if a manager nominates one of the team members saying, I feel he or she is a potential, we should develop and groom him or her? As an L&D and HR, how much weightage will that manager opinion have for you? Yeah, Preeti.
Can I go, or I thought maybe I'm talking too much. I'll wait for everyone else.
Please
Okay.
go ahead. People are putting up hands. We'll go around.
Okay. I think the manager's input is very important because I think manager has follows the growth and the progress of the person very closely. But having said that, I wouldn't take only their input completely because the person is working very closely with, there might be a lot of biases as well. So I would say somewhere up to 50%, and the remaining 50% should be maybe of some feedback from the peer, is very important, and all mainly from the external stakeholders who will have absolutely no bias. Their feedback
so not just managers but also stakeholders and people who work upstream, downstream the project. Wonderful. Yes. Sure. Thank you. Yes, Akansha.
My thoughts are actually very similar to what Preeti just mentioned. That, because, yes, of course, the manager has been working with them very closely, so will know their pros and cons very well. But that cannot be the only criteria for, considering the other person as a leader. The other stakeholders, especially their juniors, the person's junior or their employees, their, colleagues. Those two play a very important role here because they will be able to provide a better feedback, because sometimes what you showcase in front of your manager is not exactly how you are with others as well. So I've seen that there is there is a disconnect between how these two are, when in front of colleagues and the other, peers, and in comparison to the manager. So I've seen that disconnect, so would not really take it on face value. But I think here a 360-degree approach would be, more beneficial, where the kind of input that the client also provides is also very important here.
Lovely. Thank you. Vaishnavi?
In addition to the manager's feedback, peer feedback, team members' feedback, internal, external stakeholders' feedback, I think it's very important to first ask the person if they are willing to take up additional responsibilities and climb up the ladder. Because after making all these efforts, say for instance, if the person says, right now I am not willing to take up additional responsibilities, or my priorities are a little different, it is going to be, it is not going to help any one of us. So it's important to check with that person as well if they are willing, in addition to looking at their abilities. So we talk about skill and will, right? They might have the necessary skill, but if they're not willing to take that up, then there's no point in even considering them.
Lovely. So when I do the succession planning workshop, we talk about, performance versus potential. And there's a third axis to it, which is called as readiness, which exactly talks about what you're talking about, Vaishnavi, is are people even ready to take on more responsibility, or they're comfortable where they are in the time being? It need not be a permanent state, but right now I don't want to grow. I am good with it. I have other important responsibilities. So, not a position that will make me travel, or not a position that will make me manage people. So I want to stay where I am. Considering that as you design your developmental programs is equally important. Thank you.
Yeah, to answer the previous question, I'm sorry I missed answering. Talk about those assessments that, as you mentioned, cannot be a tool to identify leaders, mainly because these assessments do not tell one particular style or one particular category as the most suitable one for leaders. Everyone is unique and everyone is equally capable of being leaders. It's just a difference in the way they demonstrate their leadership skills, traits, the way they show up. So
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
going to help us in identifying leaders. We can't say that people who are, having a drive or a dominant style are better leaders. People who have influence as their dominant style or as their preferred style are not good leaders. That cannot be said. We all are different, and each one of us are equally capable of being great leaders. It's just that the way we show up, the way we get things done might be different. So that, as you mentioned, can help us realize how can they work on developing the other areas in case they're lagging behind, and how can they play to their strengths.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, that brings me to the next question. I think we should spend some time. We've already alluded to some, Sakshi, Ishita said, those are a lot more softer aspects rather than just functional technical domain skills. And what you are saying is, everybody has leadership skills, but they show up in different ways in different situations. So my question would be, what indicators beyond just performance would you want to observe, monitor, take note of, as you say, okay, these are my 5, 10, 15, 20 potential leaders that I want to groom and develop? What would those indicators for you look like?
I think one of the most important indicator for me would be accountability. How accountable is the person? If I see that in the person that I am considering, I think that's going to be a key thing for me of how accountable they feel. And it's not only towards their work, but rather the work of the entire team.
Yeah, as leaders, you are accountable for your team's delivery,
Yes.
performance, growth, everything. Sure. Thank you.
So that would be the most important criteria for me, accountability.
You? What else?
I would say the ability to look at the bigger picture, the organization's success. So, can they come up with something strategically? Can they think of something beyond what they've been doing? It may not be related to what they do at all, but if they have a thought, an idea, something that they feel will help the organization scale up, will help the organization get the required, project. If they have something, are they willing to think on those lines? Firstly, whether or not that helps us is secondary, but are they even able to think on those lines? That will help us know if the particular person has leadership skills, and are they able to think of the holistic picture, not only their tasks.
Big picture thinkers or visionary thinkers, seeing
Right.
around the corners is what you might look at, Vaishnavi. Thank you.
I think they are more, inclined towards being perfectionist. So they don't only want to be perfectionists themselves, but want an overall growth of the company, like themselves and the employees or their colleagues.
So, Sakshi, what you're saying is you will look at people who are perfectionists. And how would you define perfection?
No, not perfectionist I would look at, but somebody who's, somebody who knows what they are doing. Matlab, the main goal we have, so we know how to make it better and what's the best thing we can do about this to get it better.
Self-aware leaders who knows their
Aha.
strengths, their
Yeah.
blind spots,
Yeah.
how they are delivering, how they're impacting others, etc. Yeah, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's not just about their growth, but they see the overall growth. That how can they also make their employees or the colleagues make better.
Wonderful. Yeah, I am all for it. What else?
I think a leader should always set the right example. He or she should lead by example.
The
So that
role
is-
model.
Yeah.
And so true, Preeti. I remember where there was an amazing leader, but the language he would use would not. Today I don't even know what is the word for it. Was not inclusive. Let me leave it at that. Yeah. Despite the fact that his team's output were always amazing, I was not very happy when I was moved to his team, just because of the language he used. So that was not the role model I would imagine to be, and that was not comfortable to me at all. Totally agree. Yeah. Anything else? We've spoken about being visionary, we've spoken about being self-aware, being role models. One idea that comes to me, which I think I look for when I'm looking at leaders, is should I call it learning agility or growth mindset? I don't know. Being constantly on the lookout for learning and doing newer things, newer ways, not getting too hassled by things that did not work and say, okay, thing did not work, let me try something else. Somebody who is able to move on, be resilient. I don't know too many things in one thing, but yeah, I think growth mindset will define what I'm trying to get to. A lot of things that are packed into it is one thing. As I'm saying, one more thing, I think values and integrity are very important to me. I don't know if it's that should be a criteria for leadership or not. I think there should be an employment criteria, but definitely for leadership, values and integrity. Without that, I don't think the organization will survive. Yes, Akansha.
I think one more thing that I would like to add here is the desire to improve things. Or not, like, for example, if there is a process that they are a part of, that they are leading, for example, so the process is already set. So not just accepting the process the way it is, but also trying to come up with ways where you can make your work more efficient, your team members works more efficient. I think that will also be something that's very important. And not just accepting everything on face value, but also questioning things, that okay, why this, why not this, why can't we make it like this and make it better. So I think that would also,
people who constantly are looking to make things, make people, make processes better. Everything around them. Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else that comes to anyone's mind before we move on?
One thing that I can think of right now is, as individual contributors, it will always be about how good am I as a performer, as a contributor to a particular project. As leaders, it is important to see if we can give opportunities for others to develop, and also be willing to step back if required and let others shine. That is actually a trait. Not everyone will be able to easily get it, because it has been the norm that I'll have to always prove myself, right? So I will always be waiting for an opportunity where I can prove myself. As a leader, things are slightly different. It is not about me shining through. It is about giving others an opportunity, helping them prove their worth to their senior managers, stakeholders, and developing everyone eventually in the process. Do they have the capability of letting others shine through as they move forward? That will also a criteria that can be taken into account while spotting or identifying leaders.
Totally agree. But I'm also wondering, how will HR be able to identify whether it is, I can't do it, so let me put my team, into the cave, or
that would be definitely challenging. Probably that will not be possible, especially as you said, when they are still individual contributors. But do they have the willingness or the mindset to say, this person helped me get the required support, this particular person helped me overcome this challenge? Do they have that
willingness to share credit?
Willing to share their credit is right. Exactly.
Brilliant. Totally agree. Those are things we can at least notice, saying that okay, this person has done, and also shared credit to people who've contributed towards his or her success. Preeta, you've been very quiet. Anything that comes to your mind? All right, let's move ahead. So we've spoken about what tools, approaches we can use to identify leaders. We've spoken about what qualities we should be looking for in terms of identifying leaders. Let's also look at what tools, approaches, interventions as L&D, as HR, we can deploy in our organizations to develop these leaders. Let's not talk about the givens, which is training. Training definitely has to be given. What else have you seen work and work very well?
I think mentorship, Shanti,
Yeah.
very, very important to build leaders. That is one. And second, of course, opportunities. A lot of time.
Opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I completely agree, Preeti. And being a consultant myself, one thing I emphasize is let's not leave things at the theory level. Yes, workshops are wonderful. We can make them experiential with role plays, with activities, quizzes, videos. It can be made immersive, but only when the rubber hits the road back at the workplace will you actually know whether you've understood and applied the concept. So, giving them the opportunity to go back and apply what they've learned is so important. And I think it should also follow immediately after the learning. Welcome, Shivani. Yeah, it should also follow immediately after the learning has been consumed. I've seen where people were given training year and a half ago, and after that they get promoted and say, okay, now apply, and they've forgotten all about it. So yeah, application of the learning is pretty important. Yeah, so for people who've just joined, we are discussing what approaches apart from training can we deploy in our organizations, or have you seen being deployed in organizations to help grow the identified leaders. So one thing that Preeti mentioned was mentorship. Second was giving them opportunities. Those are the two we have discussed as of now. What else?
And I'm biased, so I'd say coaching because I'm a
Yes.
coach.
Yeah. Since we're talking about both coaching and mentoring, I'm sure the audience here is pretty aware, but let's capture it. How would you differentiate between coaching and mentoring?
So for me, one of the, I'd say, fundamental differences is a coach need not be a subject matter expert, but a mentor is somebody who's been there, done that, and could tell you more about what to do, what not to do, what resources to take. But a coach, on the other hand, is a partner who'd take the journey with you and help you figure out the path. So, yeah.
And so what you're saying is mentorship is more structured, guided, experience sharing, whereas coaching happens free flow. And both of them are equally valid when we are developing leaders in our organization. Sure. Hi, Ruchi. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, Radhe Krishna.
Radhe Krishna. What else, people? What else have you seen work in your organizations, in your context, apart from what we've already discussed, that helps grow leaders?
I'd say one other thing that I've seen that really helps is telling people that they have been identified as leaders, or someone sees potential in them, really helps them step into that role, embody it, experience it themselves. Not everybody is very self-aware or confident or extroverted to be able to feel it themselves. So bringing that up.
Yeah, just playing the devil's advocate here, Shivani, have you also seen where leaders have been identified, have been communicated that you are the identified potential leaders, and there's a challenge back to the HR saying, you said I'm a leader, why am I not getting this promotion, and how can HR manage that?
No, that has definitely happened. I think I was reading an article that something like ghosting, they were using another word of how leaders are being put in like a limbo where they're not getting promotions. I don't mean in that formal sense that, hey, we're going to give you a promotion in the next 3 months or something, but more so that, hey, as your manager, I see leadership qualities in you, or I see these are your strengths and here are the areas that you can work upon. Just more
But development perspective. These are development opportunities and not positioning it as a promotion opportunities is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So what you're saying, Shivani, is making leaders aware that they have the potential and there is scope for improvement if they participate through all of these interventions, gives them that much more rigor to be true to all the interventions that HR is designing.
Yes, because I've seen a lot of times people are doing really well, but they are not appreciated. They're very quick to identify and criticize where things are not working, but seldom do somebody pause, like in any team for that matter, we pause and appreciate the work that's happening. So I think that also really helps them. If they also begin thinking, okay, maybe I want to apply for that position, or that within them that seed needs to be planted, is what I'm saying.
Sure. So appreciation is also part of
that. Yeah, part
development.
Of
sure. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how the HR will handle that. The question that you asked earlier, I'd say somebody else here perhaps can answer that.
Yeah.
What was the other question?
So the question is, if as HR you are informing your identified potential leaders that, hey, you are potential leaders and we're going to put you through this development program, how often does it happen that they come back to you and say, hey, you put me through this high performance, high potential program, now give me the promotion? And if that happens, how do you handle that situation as HR?
Okay. So again, I'm not an HR, but to the earlier question, which was about how do you identify leaders in your team, correct?
Yeah, that's where we started with, yes.
Should I add to that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think as an entrepreneur, we have small teams. So there is no identification required. You have to go with who's there. However, currently what I'm doing is I'm really looking at who's connected to the cause. I think with this new tribe coming into workforce, the cause, that's a very big connection for them to get driven, is what I am seeing. I don't know how others feel about it. And if they are connected with the cause, so at least this is what I am trying at this point in time. So instead of asking that what is your next growth, I am talking in a language that it is implied that eventually you want to be a leader.
Yeah.
And if you, right, so you don't ask, you say that is implied, there is no other way to do it. And if that is the way to do it, then you might as well learn those skills today. So, and as you grow up the ladder, only soft skills hold importance. Everything else becomes a byproduct.
Yeah, that did come up in the beginning of the discussion where, the question was asked, what do you look for in a leader as you are identifying them as high potential? Nobody mentioned technical skills, functional skills, domain skills. None of that was mentioned.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
And so then you bring everybody's focus towards building soft skills more than anything else, because I think if that gets built, everything else will be taken care of.
Yeah. Thank you. And I like the fact that you said that, are people passionate about the cause? If they are, they will strive to grow in that area, in that space, being a leader and taking more ownership and accountability. And if they are not aligned to that larger vision and cause, they may never grow. They'll keep doing just for money or whatever reason and get done with it.
Yeah, or more than that, I think it's just about understanding how small or big that organization is. Leadership means somebody to sustain, somebody to hang on for long. If we don't get that drive of why they are hanging on beyond money, then there is a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've said feedback mechanisms, we've said learning journeys, training, opportunities. In my world, in my language, I call them action learning projects, that after you complete a training, go apply it in a project where you receive constant feedback at regular intervals, either through coaching or through mentoring. So that involves all of this. What apart from this can we L&D leaders apply in our organizations that helps people develop? Leaders develop?
I think we could offer them opportunities to shadow leaders, observe them, interact with stakeholders. So that will help in two ways, in my opinion. One is to learn from leaders who are already doing it. And secondly, it will help alleviate fears and hesitation associated with, will I be able to do this? Is it something that is even doable for me? Because we always tend to put leaders at a very high pedestal, and sometimes some of us, not all, feel that this is too much for me. I may not be able to even think about it. But when they're actually able to interact with them, observe them, see them do it, they might start getting the confidence that I think I also can develop the skills over a period of time. I may have to invest more efforts, times, but I will be able to get there sooner or later. So it will help them get that confidence, and of course learn by looking, observing, and seeing how leaders handle everyday challenges.
Wonderful. Shadowing is a lovely way to understand how things happen, and hopefully the leader themselves will create their own ways of making things happen and not copy. But definitely, Shivani, you were saying something?
I think I was asking another question to what Ruchi is sharing about, how as we grow as leaders, or how as leaders grow, we focus more on the soft skill, the behavioral aspects as well. But I think it becomes challenging to also measure them. And a way to measure them is something we I'm not sure what's the audience here, but as people who are offering trainings or etc. can bring in. I'm not sure exactly how, but that is also a very important aspect, because I worked with a lot of leaders who think they have great skills in those, but may not be. And some people who do have a lot of skills, like Vaishnavi was sharing, that they may have that skills, but they still may feel that fear. So both sides of the coin. So
absolutely, measuring that needle move is very tricky, very subjective. And you can make it objective, but it depends on, that tool assessed me like this, or that person assessed me like this. So HR does get lots of pushback. And in fact, in the last month's meeting, that's what we were discussing. How can L&D demonstrate the ROI of the training interventions that they're doing? Because every leader, before allocating the funds and saying, go, spend these lakhs of rupees on this particular audience, is going to say, how is it going to benefit? How is my organization, my business, my team going to reap benefits of all that you're doing? So very difficult. We did come up with some lovely themes in terms of what we can do. And Ishita, if you can just add a link to the digital asset in the chat for people who might not have been there last time, for them to download and see what we came up with last time, would be nice.
I have a experience share to what Shivani just mentioned. It just happened that just 2 days ago we were discussing this. In my husband's office, there is a gentleman who is in a managerial role, and to go to next level, he's already one of the leaders. Managers are one of the leaders. Now, of course, he has to go to next level. Now, at this level only, there are soft skills issues going on. And the conversation was about, to have him in the company, to not have him in the company, because he's becoming redundant, because he's not taking feedback, not able to understand, and all of that. Now, between all of this, one way of measurement was, which my husband only came up saying, that if there are, say, in our team, if there are, say, 7 leaders or 10 leaders or managers, like however you name them, end of the day, their job is to get ABC work done by X number of people. Now, to get that ABC work done by X number of people, there is noise in the room.
Yes.
Right? And that noise demarcates their leadership. If there is calmness, then that manager or that leader is great, because that work is happening. There will always be noise, but there will not be cribbing. Wherever there is cribbing, there is irritation, there is satisfaction issues. These are red marks for those managers or leaders to get that, there is a bottleneck coming in.
Very beautifully. It's not just what gets done or accomplished, it's also how it gets accomplished, and how people are feeling who are helping you get accomplished.
So for leaders, how is more important than what, because they will get it done. They are leaders. But how do they get it done makes them exceptional. I think Modi ji is a classic example. Everybody was questioning for 10 days, what are we going to do? Are we ready for it? Blah, blah, all of that. But the way he came back responding, and with the preparedness that he came, I think nobody in the entire nation saw that coming. And that is the how bit of what happened. That is not what happened.
Yeah. Sure. Anything that comes to anyone's mind in terms of how can you develop leaders? Because we've been talking a lot. Kirti, Preeta, you've been very silent. Anything you want to add, share, please do. Yeah, if not, let's move to the next question that I have in mind. What are the challenges that HR and L&D leaders might face as they are identifying, grooming, measuring, ensuring that demonstrating ROI to the leaders? As they're doing all of this, what could the key challenges be, and what have you seen happening in organizations that has helped the HR and L&D teams?
Should I give my requirement as an entrepreneur? Because when
Yes,
I'm
please.
listening
Why
to these
not?
questions, I'm thinking from that perspective.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you had earlier asked, Shanti, how will you measure if these trainings are adding value to the to the teams?
Yeah.
Actually, I was sitting on it just a couple of days ago again, and I was thinking that now, for example, in my team, I'm working on communication. I think communication is just so important to build leaders again. And to get communication, I understand what it is when you talk versus when somebody else comes and talks. But the point is, if there is a way or a system that it is explained that this is what gets taught, then you said that how these people are using it. So most of the times people are not driven to use the knowledge by themselves. We all are hungry for knowledge, but application of knowledge is not so easy for us. We are hesitant about it. And that is where I think the need is. So L&D should not be just about imparting knowledge. L&D is today supposed to get to that stretch where you help them implement that knowledge.
Absolutely.
And that report is what the manager, the CEO, or the leader, whoever is sitting there, needs to understand how that is making a difference in day-to-day work.
Totally agree. And we were talking about, doing a 360 or a 270 before and after the intervention, so that people who are working with this leader on a day-to-day basis are able to tell, okay, this leader has changed, has moved, has transformed. And that's only possible if they're applying. If that PDF or that workbook gets, collects dust somewhere in a drawer, nothing is going to change. Totally agree.
Yeah. Actually, when I'm listening to him, thinking for that person who at that managerial level is struggling with communication issue, if he gets hold of, or that company can organize somebody that he can work with one-to-one, and they can generate a report to the company to say that this is where the rigidness was and this is where it's coming to, that is going to help him and that organization so much to know how to take it to next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about assessments also, Ruchi, and we were very clear that assessments are a developmental tool. So it tells you this is where you are, your baseline. You know where you want to be and move there. In fact, we were thinking whether assessments are a good way to identify leadership. We dismissed it, all of us unanimously, saying not to identify leaders, but to grow leaders is what came up. Sure.
Or just for self-reflection.
Yes, brilliant.
If somebody can take it like that, I don't know.
Yeah, lots of people do take it. I keep doing all sorts. Any assessment that comes my way, I will do it to see, okay, what is this score telling about me, and am I able to correlate it with so many other previous tests that I've done for myself? So I do that. Keep doing that.
Even I like to do that, but for example, you guys must have heard of those tests which has colors: red, blue, green, yellow, especially with HR, since everybody here is from corporate. For some reasons, when I'm talking to corporates today, they all talk in this color language. That one is red, this one is yellow, this one is green, that one is
green
blue.
and blue. Yeah.
And I wherever this is happening, I'm seeing these people driven with it. But again, there are two sets that I see. That one set is able to say that this is what my role is and this is what my color is and this is how it's happening. And one is they are reading their managers like that, that my manager has this color but he or she should have this color, and that's also a conversation.
Yeah, if the assessments are used to only assign labels, I don't think it's a developmental tool
Yeah.
anymore. Then it's finger pointing, so and so should be that, so and so should be that. Rather, how do I need to show up in the situation? Yeah. Any other challenges that HR and L&D may face? Preeti, Vaishnavi?
I think the first challenge is to convince them to take time out of their regular work for any kind of developmental activity.
I try. Being a
That
consultant,
itself
I
is a
know.
big challenge.
Yeah.
Nobody wants their routine work to be affected because of any such training, coaching, or learning intervention. But sadly, that is not possible. We will have to take time out. We will have to ensure we spend at least a few hours for leadership development on a regular basis. So how
I
do
was
we
talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and we were talking about Zepto Blinkit learning. That was the name that we came up with. That everybody wants it, in 1 hour, do magic.
Right.
In 1 hour, complete all stakeholder management. In 1 hour, do all strategic thinking. So they want it like, Zepto, Blinkit, they deliver it to us in 5, 7, 10 minutes. They want training also like that. And yeah, leaders are hard pressed for time.
Yeah.
Yes, Akansha.
I mean, very real challenge as an HR that I have faced is attrition. Like, you develop them and you train them and you do everything, and then, they jump ships. So that becomes a very real problem where you've invested so much time and effort in, training them, developing them, and, creating a strategy where this fits, and this is how the business is going to move in this direction now. But then, they just move and then the entire thing.
I'll give you a very cookie cutter answer for this, but I'm very proud about this answer also. That's why I keep using it again and again. So there was this conversation between a CEO and a CFO. The CEO said, please use these lakhs to train my people. The CFO said, what if they get trained and leave? The CEO said, what if they don't get trained and stay back? Yeah. So, yes, there is always this risk that they will all get, and you can't stop people. That is the reality of today, that you cannot stop people. People will leave, but at least till the time they are there, if they can deliver what they're supposed to, is a far better situation than dealing with underperformers or insufficient performers where they're not delivering results. Yes, it is an investment, but hopefully it is giving back something to you as an organization in HR.
I think at that point of time, it becomes very important as a HR also strategically to understand whether building is more cost efficient or buying. So there's this build versus buy. So, at that point of time, it becomes very important whether you are building or you're buying your, development. What would be preferable for you, more cost effective in every way?
Every time you buy a new resource, you will never get it at the same salary that you were paying to the current employee. It is always an increment. Plus, also think about that lead time that you're investing in terms of developing that resource till they're fully functional and ready and independently performing like the previous resource you let go. So, yeah, I mean, it can be just my bias, my view that developing is far more economical, cheaper, viable solution than getting newer people. Yeah, but yeah, it has to be presented to the management in a way that makes sense to them. Yeah. Shivani, I saw you put up hand and it went down. Is that?
I think I was echoing what you just said. Like, I have worked in organizations that have a culture of developing people, and yes, there are people who leave, but when developing people is a culture and not an exception, or we do it for few people, that's when we run into these issues a lot more than when it's a part of the culture. And then everybody is there. There's always so many more people, and you're known for it. And then people who really appreciate it stay there. I've seen people stay in that organization because the organization invests in them, and the culture is or that of developing in people, right? And even like, and now as a freelance, like as a business owner or consultant like Shanti is, we love working with such organizations because they're genuinely interested in developing their people, and it's not just a checkbox. And the kind of intervention, the people, the feedback, the involvement that we get, it gives us a lot of joy as well. So I think that was what I was.
Josh Person, he's a leader in the L&D space. He says a learning organization is one where everybody gets an opportunity to groom themselves, develop themselves, and it's not pockets that we are developing people in. And definitely results show that the organization performs far better when they're a learning organization. Thank you, Shivani. Yes, Vaishnavi.
Yeah, there's one more way to look at it when people leave organizations and move. In fact, HR and L&D can proudly tell that, see, hey, because of our developmental interventions, because of our learning intervention, this person developed, they transformed, and look at their ability, they're able to get better opportunities. That's in fact a measure of success for L&D and HR. When they're able to see how people have transformed and they're able to get opportunities. I know this is not exactly what we intended to achieve, but yes, let us see how this has helped someone in some way, and that is a measure of our success too.
Yeah, when I was working for a large BFSI organization, that was a metric for HR and L&D. Though we had internal mobility also, if people moved within the organization different roles, that was also attributed to HR's success. But totally agree that even if they go out, we've prepared them in a way that another organization is willing to accept them. Yeah. Hey, I like that definition. Thank you. What else?
It just reminds me that, the vision that HRs and L&Ds when developing people needs to be beyond the org and a role. It's to develop people, irrespective of where they end up. Whether some people will, go and start their own businesses perhaps or do differently. But I think that was what was the way I was thinking what was so different about that previous organization that I worked for, and that was their aim. The vision itself said that they want to develop people. It is not about this organization or this role, and which is why they didn't worry if people left, because wherever they're going, they're developed, they are aware, and they're carrying that with them, whether they acknowledge it or not. So, yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it. Vaishnavi, I'll use it next time somebody asks a question.
Yes. I don't know whether I should be bringing it up here. I will anyways. How has Trump's decision impacted everything that he's doing around D&I impacted your L&D initiatives? I know some of you are consultants here. The offerings that you share with your organizations in terms of leadership development, what has the change been? What's the flavor now? It's heartbreaking, and that's why I'm asking. I can start why. Before Trump came on board, January and all, I was slated for several, during the month of March, several leadership talks. In February, they all came back and said, we don't know whether we want to do this. Can you do the talk without using the words diversity, without using the word women or inclusion? I said, what do you want me to do on Women's Day without using women, diversity or inclusion? How do you want me to talk about it? And several of them withdrew. They said, our global counterparts in US said nothing, no initiatives on D&I, so we have to pull back. So I am seeing, at least right now, there is a caution in D&I related leadership development, but would love to hear if any one of you here has experienced something.
I know a lot of funds have been stopped for a lot of NGOs, and for them, all the projects have come on pause.
Yeah.
So India is, I think, quite a bit affected because a lot of US funds were coming to India.
Right.
So yes, that's what I see in my industry.
In fact, I had to rebrand a women's leadership program as a generic leadership program. Just rebrand. Same content being delivered. The organization identified only women leaders and we are going through it, but they could not call it a women's leadership program. They had to call it a leadership program, and they're still doing it.
Yeah. What I felt bad was, we are still, I think we can manage life, but the rural India where really we need money coming in, the artisanal sector where a lot of money was going to build them. Last 2 years, some great programs happened. All that have gone absolutely on pause.
Yeah.
People are figuring out what to do and how to do. So they've gone hard on sales now.
Yeah. Hear that.
Same as what you said, Shanti. I was doing, as you know, a series of, I would say, workshops or say learning journey for women employees for an organization for almost 2 years in a row. I think this year there has been a pause because of the change in the policy and the funds being curtailed specifically for these women-oriented programs. So I think there is a change. Although this is happening, now that he has become more vocal, especially with this Harvard issue where he says that we cannot have foreign students coming in. The cap has to be only 15%, not 31% as is. People are slowly waking up. People are slowly realizing this is not helping. And I am hoping to see a shift in the perspective, if not immediately, after a few months down the line. Because now people are slowly realizing this will not help us.
Yeah, fingers, hands, legs, all body appendages crossed. I hope we revert. I hope we see this change.
It might take a little, longer though. But yes, people now are thinking if this is helping us in some way, or this is actually derailing us from our development. That thought has slowly started seeping in. So let's see.
In the urban areas, I think it's far easier. Because people are smarter, right? Okay, don't call it women leadership program, give it a generic name, don't use women, and we'll still run the same program. They've figured out their ways, but it's in the non-urban areas where something has to change, move, and we need more courageous people to step up and say, I don't care, I will do. I hope I gather that courage. Let's see.
I have a slightly different perspective, and I agree with all that you shared, because I've seen a huge hit in the rural section, and the section that really requires us to call out that this is a program for this, right? But I have also started to see in the urban areas, in the social media spaces, the language it seep in. It's very subtle. But the way people have started to speak, respond, it has also started to take a hit, because somebody with such a big stage and such a big mic is speaking so many things. There are a lot of people who have started to speak that as well. So maybe they weren't speaking so openly about it, weren't openly arguing about it earlier, or even if they felt it, they wouldn't voice it out. But I've seen that happen a lot more, which is impacting a lot of people very, very slowly. It's not outright, racism is two types. One is very subtle. Similarly, I think these initiatives, I've seen a lot slight, and it's become a part of jokes, oh, this is like that. So I think that is what I have observed from the last few months, a shift that is slightly bringing in. It's starting to seep into the everyday life. And how do we reverse that? Like, initiatives is as big, you can see that, people have stopped initiatives, they have closed down projects, a lot of NGOs have closed down because of funding. But these subtle things which will slowly become part of people's language and vocabulary and become normal, that is something, an issue which I see.
Very concerning. Yeah, very concerning. Yeah, I've been chucked out of family groups for opposing certain views. Has happened. So relate to that.
Even the fact of, I think recently there was a case around women not being allowed to abort a baby that she was conceived during a sexual assault, right? So there was a huge, but the way people were discussing it on the group, I have not seen that much. It was not that apparent, say 6 months ago,
Yeah.
because somehow it's become normal to
Okay. Acceptable.
acceptable
that
to
language.
speak the way, yeah. And somebody calling out is immediately an attack on them. So it'll take a lot more courage for people to stand up and say, "Hey, I think this." So
yeah. All right. Coming back to our topic, last topic on how do you develop leaders. How should HR and L&D define their success? So after an initiative, they've done it, they've delivered, they've measured it. What should be those metrics, numbers, things that they should observe that they can feel, yay, we have succeeded? What should that look like? Oh, I want to become A.K. Hangal of Sholay. इतना सन्नाटा क्यों है भाई?
Shanti, is the question with regard to all initiatives or particularly for leadership development?
For leadership development, when can HR pat their back and say, we've done a good job, this initiative was a success?
We can go with the Kirkpatrick's model. We start with reaction. How was the program? First and foremost, the participants really find the program meaningful, interesting, insightful, and did it help them in some way from their own words? We could start with that, the participation rates. Are they willing to recommend this program for their peers or for whom they think this would add value? Starting with the reaction of the participants. So that is the immediate response or reaction we can capture to understand if the program is a success.
Absolutely.
And then is the learning.
We would call it the net promoter score.
Right.
And calculate how much are they promoting your program, saying that others should also attend. Totally agree. What else, Vaishnavi?
Yeah. Otherwise, I think if we go by the model, it is the learning again that we tend to capture. Have they learned something? Has there been a shift in what they knew before and after the intervention? If it is something that we would want to test, but considering that this is leadership development, that is going to be challenging. So we may not be really capturing what they have learned theoretically, but the application aspect, the transfer of learning is something we would have to check. And that can be possible through feedback from peers, feedback from stakeholders.
It might also take a long while is what I'm thinking, because what leaders learn and apply may not be immediate.
Exactly. That is why we will have to see the transformation after a year in case it is a learning journey. How have they transformed over a period of time? Because it's going to take several interventions, several reminders, several kinds of stimuli to constantly tell them, to remind them, to help them understand what they need to be doing, how they need to be doing, and see if that has led to some form of transformation after a period of time.
Lovely. What else? When I was doing my certification on learning and development manager, they used to say leading indicators and lagging indicators. What leading and lagging indicators for HR can you identify? I remember for programs, but yeah, I twist that question to see what leading and lagging indicators can you measure to showcase that you've been successful.
I think one way, another way apart from what Vaishnavi said, more like behavior, like if the HR and L&D does not have to drag or, send multiple reminders or push people to attend, make it compulsory. Like people are genuinely really interested to attend the subsequent programs on their own. That is a good indicator that they are finding value in it, and and because that's we are making them responsible for their own enrolling rather than us being the herder. So I don't know how to measure this, but I think as if I was an HR, indeed that would be my one of the indicators, apart from what Vaishnavi already mentioned, that people are genuinely interested. So that means training was good and useful.
Totally agree. And that can be measured, Shivani. All we need to do is figure out, once you announce a workshop, how many people register versus how many people attend. Registrations are pretty high in corporates, but the actual show up on the day of the event is not great. Yeah, so that would show if people are that percentage of people attending versus registering is pretty close to 1. I would ideally want it to be a 1, but yes, Akansha.
I think it would also depend upon how comfortable people now feel with their role that they were being groomed for. How, of course, it's something that you have to, with continuous intervention, as Vaishnavi said, is how comfortable are you in your role, in the leadership position that has been offered to you? How in ease are you with your peers, with your seniors as well into it? I think that is one way of understanding whether, the HR and L&D initiatives that have been taken have been successful or not.
Would you be open to asking feedback from the participants for HR? How did we perform? How did we support you in your growth journey?
Yes.
To make you feel comfortable.
Yes, definitely. I think that will be one thing. Yeah, that will definitely be one thing. And one more thing that was there is when we do a TNA, before and after, what were certain things that you had issues with, and do you think they have been addressed post this training that you have gone through? If we have been able to address these two things, then I think that's also one way of looking at it, that the plan and everything that we had in mind is successful.
So definitely TNA, and also the skills matrix yes. Before and after, what has moved, and TNA, what has changed in the redone TNA. Perfect. Anything else that comes to anyone's minds?
If I can contribute,
yes, please.
Again, from my experience, if I look at myself as the HR in my company, and when I go up to my team to tell them, okay, we'll train on ABC subject, versus where I see them coming and taking lead and charge, I see the real gap is the will and the connection. So most of the times the conversation comes is, we have just so much going on. How do we prioritize anything else? But when they see that something that is coming will take their goals forward, I see them apne aap se making an extra hour available to do that particular training or exercise or session or learning, whatever, without any intervention. And at that space, I don't even need to go and ask them what's happening and how it was. Things just tend to roll automatically.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point you bring up, Ruchi. I think a lot of HR miss what's in it for them. As they're communicating learning intervention, it seems like a push. Management wants it, HR wants it, leadership wants it, your role wants it, rather than what's in it for you, how will you benefit? Yeah.
Also the feel-good factor, because I am, I think all of you are in big corporates and you all are dealing with, bigger teams, or in that space. My understanding is, as people, we are very simple people, especially, and you all can correct me, I think the larger dharna in cities like Bangalore is Monday to Friday खट लो, Saturday Sunday आराम कर लो, उसमें थोड़ा सा समय मिल जाए तो अपने आप को बिल्ड कर लो, ऐश कर लो, घूम लो, फलाना ढिमकाना. करेक्ट? नाउ इन दैट स्पेस मेरे को जो ग्रोथ मिल रहा है वो मंडे टू फ्राइडे में मिल रहा है. अब उसमें ये जो जितने भी ट्रेनिंग, लर्निंग, कॉन्वर्सेशन है, ये दो लेवल के होते हैं. वन होते हैं जहाँ पे आई एम सेइंग बिकॉज आई वांट टू बी एक्सेप्टेड इन दैट क्राउड. वो लोगों को लगता है हाँ ये बोल रहा है, इसका पर्सपेक्टिव है, ये सोच रहा है, बट इंटरनली आई एम नॉट ड्रिवन, हम खाली बोल रहे हैं. So to say that I want this versus I really want this, I think even there is a gap.
Very true. Very
And
true.
that gap is real problem to be addressed. And especially with HR and L&D, I think because it seems that this category of people are so driven by people per se, it is expected for you to be able to read in between lines when somebody is saying I want it versus do they really want it?
Really want it. Yeah. Very good point.
So,
anybody here who has evaluated this to figure out, do they want it for the sake of wanting it, or do they really want it, and what transpired?
I think this is something in my previous organization, I had, this one person. So he was into videography, editing, those aspects. So he used to tell us that, I want to do this and I want to do that. He used to keep telling us this. And we would be like, yes, we'll let you know. We'll think of some programs that you can research and something like that. And then slowly we realized that, the guy himself started taking initiatives and learning through YouTube.
Yeah.
Because that is a free source available to, I think, everyone. Yes, you do not get any certifications or anything like that. But then, because he did genuinely have the will, he genuinely wanted to learn it. And it was not just something to say it. He genuinely had the will that, yes, I want to do it. So he took the initiatives on his own and started learning through YouTube, which is when the company decided that, okay, we should, now definitely invest. And give him.
That's a very beautiful thing, Akansha. In my organization, we had allocated budgets, annual budget for employees to use in whatever they wanted to. You want to go and learn guitar, go. That was the budget, and people didn't use it. At the end of the year, 94% of the budget was unutilized, and these were budgets, use it, lose it. So next year we didn't get that budget. It was only that few percentage who were really willing to, the one who used it 100% and said, can I have some more budget? But those who can't find time for their own growth will never find. Totally agree. And that's a very good measure. Noted. I'm hoping we are able to capture it in the, what we've learned together PDF and share it with all of you. With that, we are almost towards the end of our session today. Any final thoughts, conversations, anything we should have asked, we haven't asked?
My current hunger point is, how do you get effective communication rolling in teams? I'm just placing it because you guys are expert working with teams. But yeah, you all can choose.
Come again with your question, Ruchi. How do you establish effective communication? So what is effective communication? Effective communication brings in all that practice of don't try and judge the intention of the person. Be crisp, be clear, be explanatory. Don't hesitate. Don't assume. Use specific words. Use specific names. They look so simple, but in day-to-day, minute-to-minute work, they are the most difficult. Most difficult. One, glad you are able to define what effective communication actually means. I've seen leaders who say, please train my team on effective communication. And when I say, okay, can you give me the specs? What is it you want them to do at the end of this training? Oh, communicate effectively. So the definition itself is missing. Yeah. And that communication is such a big umbrella. It could be English aati hai, nahi aati hai. Yeah. Do you know the tools to use or not? Yeah. Do you know the right language, verbiage, tonality or not? And how not only your vocal tone, but also the language ka tone. It could mean so many things. Yeah. So firstly, my thing would be to start with defining what effective communication for you in your context, in your organization, for your team means. In our organization, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this is what effective communication means, with examples saying this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. I know you, Ruchi, I am in the same boat, right? Small organization, 5, 7, 10 people, and one person does so many things and they're expected to multi-hat and all of that. I think it becomes important to give them very specific contextual examples, not the theoretical examples which are found in the books to say, don't judge. But no, catch them when they're doing that, saying, okay, what you said just now is a label, is a judgment that you just passed. Can you reword it? Make them do it immediately. I don't think a training would really help here, because what you might, the kind of language you might want a more senior person to embrace versus a middle, experienced person versus a new fresher join, it may vary. For some, it's okay even if English is not fine, grammatically incorrect, chalega, we'll still survive. But people who are putting out stuff on social media, you can't afford, incorrect language, tone, grammar. There you might want to be more stricter.
You gave me my answer, Shanti, anyways.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Anyone else to add on to help Ruchi?
So I'll just conclude this from my end. In midst of this question, one of the question also was, what is the right way of telling them what is the right way to communicate? And I am currently doing what you just mentioned, Shanti, which is when there is a problem, just cut it there. Hold everything up and say, okay, can this be done better?
Yeah.
Now, at that point, every time I'm doing this, I am delaying that work at hand. Now that delay is costing the team. So they come back saying, आपको तो फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, आप हम लोग का काम delay करा रहे हैं.
Yeah.
So, I am at that process where I'm thinking from all stakeholder perspectives. I was thinking if this is the best way or there is something. But if this is the best way, then it is. I mean, if it is holding up, it is holding up, can't do much.
It is holding up, because holding up sooner is better than when everything is done only to figure out things were not done the right way. Yeah.
To add on to what Shanti said, Ruchi, I would also say it's important to share the intended outcome. What is it that I'm trying to achieve when I'm doing this? That will help them think from their perspective. What is it that I should be doing so that the particular outcome that Ruchi wants can be achieved? Yeah.
Thank you.
So that will help them think on those lines, because it is not just what, it is also why am I doing what am I supposed to be doing. That becomes clearer. I will know what needs to be done, because every time I cannot expect someone to tell me what needs to be done. But if I know why am I doing it, I will be able to change what I am doing instantly to support that intended outcome.
Thank you. That is helpful.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you, people. Thank you so much. We will share the recording and Grow with Satori style. We will convert all our lessons learned into a PDF consumable format and send it back to you. And we will announce the theme for the next month's discussion shortly. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.